Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here again this year with you. Thank you for having me. Thank you to the members of the General Assembly who are here. Thank you to my members of my Dept staff, my amazing Dept staff who are here. And really thank you to all of the advocates here in this room who are fighting hard on the front lines each and every day. It seems like only yesterday that the 2017 legislative session ended, perhaps because it did only end yesterday. Or actually, they're not quite done. There's still a $250 million deficit. There were some wins in the past session, and Eric alluded to one of them. And I wanted to talk about that. With the help of so many people in this room, the Passport to Parks was created. This is a sustainable funding source for our state parks. We must always be vigilant, however, to additional sweeps of these funds to pay for other things. They were even built in to the creation of the passport, but I'm going to try to be positive today. Each year, more than 9 million people visit our state parks. Fun fact, that's more than the casinos combined. So we're a major driver of tourism here in this state. And with this new program, we can expect to see even more folks coming. We're actually gearing up for a 10% or so increase. This is an economic driver to the state, to the communities that they are located in. When people visit our state parks, they also visit the local restaurants. They shop, they go to a farm, they sometimes even go to a brewery. I've been known to do that on occasion myself. So it's important that we continue to invest in and protect our parks, and the new Passport to Parks program helps to provide that consistent funding stream to protect them. It also allows us to give more to the public, and Eric was alluding to this, that has now invested. They're now invested in our park system, so that we will be rolling out increased lifeguards, shoulder season camping for opening day of fishing, and into the fall foliage season, longer hours at museums and nature centers. These are the things that the visitors and the public want and they enjoy. We're also going to focus on creating that positive visitor experience with a focus on safety, ensuring our parks are properly maintained, trash pickup, clean bathrooms. I'm a parent with kids. Those are some of the most important things, but trail maintenance. That 10% increase in visitors, we're going to be reaching out to them to help us in that mission, to be the backpacker, to pack it in, you have to pack it out, or help us in keeping our parks clean and safe. We're also looking to it's a great source of seasonal employment. So if you know someone who's interested, we're hiring. Go to the Connecticut Jobs app, the jobscloud.com/CT. We're looking for lifeguards, maintainers. We get an amazing crop of folks who are in the environmental field, who are passionate about these issues, who come and work. A lot of our full-time staff actually started as a ticket taker at Hammonasset or the like in the seasonal program. So make no mistake, Passport to Parks was an important victory, but there were also setbacks, and that happened when the governor was out of the room. Though we killed it in the Environment Committee, somehow the budget bill included a requirement that certain permit requests submitted to Dept shall be automatically deemed approved unless otherwise acted upon within 90 days. The 90-day permitting made it into the budget. This is awful public policy, period, full stop. And it's on the part of the General Assembly. It's one that we're going to work to address. I'm going to be very clear on this point. I will never put the health or safety of our residents or the environment of this state in jeopardy by automatic approval of permits. My staff. So my staff has been spending an inordinate amount of time trying to manage this new hidden law, and it's wasted time, to interpret it in a way that's least harmful to our environment and our citizens. I wasn't going to talk about our declining budget, our shrinking staff, our loss of people with more than 30 years experience, because I've been told by folks that I depress the hell out of everyone when I start. Literally, people have told me that it's a little too depressing. But this 90-day stupidity is really the type of things that just wastes our time for no good reason. And that's what I'm going to fight against as well with the General Assembly. Another obvious and misguided misstep of the General Assembly was sweeping a significant portion of the funding for our award-winning Green Bank and energy efficiency programs, as well as the sweeps of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative auction proceeds, all of which are investments in Connecticut's clean energy economy. These programs have been vital to our efforts to reduce carbon emissions and help customers lower their energy consumption. Efficiency is the first fuel, the foundation of our clean energy programs in Connecticut. The efficiency sector employs tens of thousands of people here in Connecticut as HES providers, HVAC installers, insulation installers, right here in Connecticut. Efficiency and weatherization reduces energy burden on low and moderate income households. Efficiency helps businesses large and small stay competitive here in Connecticut. And efficiency avoids us having to build new or run old fossil fuel power plants in the New England grid when we get credit for the ISO New England in their forward capacity auction. The Connecticut Green Bank, with Brian Garcia is going to talk more about right after me, has sparked a clean energy revolution in this state and was a national, international movement of green banks, and were some of the reasons it won the Harvard Kennedy School's Innovation in Government Award in 2017. The Green Bank model is using limited public dollars to leverage 5, 6, 10 times the amount of private capital, and is responsible for over $1 billion invested in our clean energy economy. The Green Bank has supported residential solar investments through its SHREC program, helped foster thousands of solar jobs here in Connecticut. The Green Bank has reduced energy costs and deploys clean energy in the commercial, industrial, manufacturing, and nonprofit sectors through its remarkable CPACE program. The Green Bank has tackled the tough sectors, the multifamily, the low and moderate income, to ensure that the clean energy revolution includes all of Connecticut. Despite the legislature's goal of no new taxes, customers will continue to be charged for these programs on their utility bills, and the money will flow to the general fund, effectively creating an energy tax on all of us. So we're working closely with the Green Bank and the Energy Efficiency Board, the clean energy companies and advocates to mitigate the damage caused by the sweeps and secure the future of these vital programs. Despite those difficulties that the last session brought, I'm actually hopeful that the upcoming legislative session legislators will commit themselves to protecting the future, and not on just the budgetary side, but take real action to address climate change. And yes, I'm a commissioner who can talk openly about climate change. I'm actually allowed to do something about it. We're a rare breed. It's a dozen or so across the country. I'm not joking. It's growing slowly. The numbers are growing. Governor Malloy will continue to take a leadership role in the face of the awful combination of federal denial, retreat, inaction, and outright assault on our environment that have been perpetrated by the Trump administration. So I want to spend the remainder of my time, and I know they're telling my time is short, but you guys are running early. We're not even at 10:30 yet, so I'm going to take a few more minutes. Thank you. All of us should feel an obligation to future generations to take action to address the very real threat of climate change. So I'm going to talk about why I believe now is the time in this upcoming legislative session to prioritize climate change by both, one, integrating our climate and energy policies, and two, finding ways to adapt to our already changed climate and make our communities more resilient in the face of projected sea level rise. So in his farewell address, President Obama was clear on this point. He's a president I can actually freely quote without worrying that he's going to say potty words that my 7-year-old shouldn't be hearing, so I will quote him freely. Without bolder action, our children won't have the time to debate the existence of climate change. They will be busy dealing with its effects. Environmental disasters, economic disruptions, and waves of climate refugees seeking sanctuary. Now, we can and should debate about the best approach to this problem, but to simply deny the problem not only betrays future generations, it betrays the essential spirit of innovation and practical problem solving that guided our founders. Innovation and problem solving, that is at the core of what truly makes America great. What makes this past year's assault on science and innovation so disturbing as well. It's a particularly odd year to be a scientist, and I am one. I am a scientist. I'm also the son of a scientist. My dad was a biomedical engineer. I'm the grandson of a scientist. He was a food chemist. I married a scientist. She's a psychologist. My kids love science, and they love going out in the natural world. And I have the honor and privilege of leading an agency with over 500 scientists and engineers. Our agency scientists, in partnership with our great academic institutions here in Connecticut, have created the 30-plus-year record of changes to the temperature, water quality, sea level, and flora and fauna on Long Island Sound. This time series data shows warmer waters, rising waters, and waters that now more closely resemble Maryland than Maine. It's blue crabs instead of lobsters in Long Island Sound, as the cold water species move north and the warm water species move in. And here in this audience, there are citizen scientists, all of you here, who have observed that that part of town that now floods every week or every month that never used to flood before, or the disruptive rhythms of the seasons where birds or bugs arrive early, some arrive too late, or some don't arrive at all. The scientific predictions of the likely new normal under a warm climate all seem to happen this year in dramatic fashion. The torrential rains and floods of Houston, the hurricane that devastated and is still devastating Puerto Rico, the fires of California, the dramatic loss of life, and the incredible billions of dollars of damage to our infrastructure in our cities and our communities. So here in Connecticut, actual scientists, we have them here in Connecticut, we actually listen to them as well. At the Connecticut Institute for Resilience and Climate Adaptation, CIRCA, supported by Dept and the Connecticut General Assembly, have now localized the national and global projection for sea level rise to our conditions on the ground here in Connecticut. And they've established that we should expect 50 centimeters of sea level rise in Long Island Sound by 2050. 50 by 50, that's 1 foot 8 inches, 20 inches for all those who want to do the conversion. And I'll let that sink in, because that will have a dramatic impact on our state and the infrastructure along our coastline. We need strong and smart policies governing the decisions we are making in the coastal zone, which will be a dramatically different place over the next 30 years with increased frequency of flooding events and higher flood levels. President Trump's misguided decision to withdraw from the Paris Agreement only increases the probability of the more storms in the future and that our sea level rise projections will be too low. Thankfully, Connecticut has stepped up and joined with other states, Republican and Democratic, in forming the United States Climate Alliance, which is committing to upholding the Paris Climate Agreement and taking aggressive action on climate change. EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt has also announced his plans to roll back the Clean Power Plan. I had to go travel to West Virginia to tell him, hell no, that's not what we want here in Connecticut. I had to go to the heart of coal country, the only public hearing he was holding on the matter until enough people got up and yelled, and he's finally holding a few more. The morning of that first day was what Pruitt wanted. The CEO of Murray Energy falsely claimed that the Clean Power Plan was killing coal jobs instead of the changes in the natural gas markets that were actually the cause of its demise. And he had 50 of his employees behind him in their jumpsuits and hard hats to say that they're killing coal jobs. That was the first hour or so of that hearing, but then the rest of it and the 2 days of it, and when I was there, something inspiring happened. People from across the country got on buses and cars and planes and made that trip to Charleston, West Virginia, which is not an easy trip, to share their stories about how coal-fired power plants and the air pollution that they create are impacting their communities, their mothers, their sisters, their brothers, their cousins. These were high school and college kids. These were environmental justice activists. These were concerned individuals, all coming to say, there is a different way, there is a better way, and more coal is not the answer. So it's easy to get down in the face of the bad policies come out of Washington, but those voices in Charleston were inspiring and uplifting, and I was proud to join them. We need to harness similar and channel similar inspiring and uplifting voices here in Connecticut to take action against climate change. One of those inspiring voices came last Friday from the Governor's Council on Climate Change, and I know there are members here who are part of that organization. It's a group of state agencies, nonprofit organizations, academic institutions, business leaders who, through consensus, recommended an economy-wide greenhouse gas emission reduction target of 45% below 2001 levels by 2030. 45% by 2030 is an ambitious goal that will require significant and dramatic changes to all sectors of our state's economy and a concerted effort by all parts of civil society. And to put that in some context, it's California or New York plus. California, they're at 40% by 2030. New York is at 40% by 2030. Rhode Island is at 45% by 2035, so 5 years ahead of Rhode Island. This is where the statement that we're going to make here in Connecticut relative to our peers, but we picked the linear projection from where we are today to that 80% by 2050 goal that's in statute. So that just keeps us on target. But there's a whole lot we have to do. We must implement a major transformation of how we generate energy and use energy in a short amount of time. We must commit to modernizing and decarbonizing our transportation system, vehicles, building stock, heating, cooling systems, electricity generation system. There will inevitably be multiple options and choices for achieving greenhouse gas reductions, so we must prioritize measures based on their ability to deliver the most bang for the buck. We should focus on the things that are most cost-effective and efficient, and we should focus on proven, scalable technologies. We should recognize the code benefits, improved health, economic development, energy security, and independence, and quality of life. The success of our efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in Connecticut and its value to the national and international efforts to limit global temperatures below 2 degrees Celsius requires engagement and action from all levels of government, local, state, regional, and national. Government action alone cannot do it. We must harness the innovation and engage and foster and leverage the support of the private sector as it develops and implements solutions that will lead to greenhouse gas reductions. The government and private sectors can't do it by themselves. Individual citizens, civic organizations, religious groups, NGOs, and other members of civil society must be engaged, active participants in a transition to a decarbonized economy. Fairness, justice, and equity and intergenerational costs must be a part of that discussion about climate change. We must maximize synergies between the things we're doing to reduce emissions and the things we're doing to adapt to climate change. And we must regularly check in to make sure that we're on the right path. So we know that Connecticut cannot solve the global climate crisis on its own. Our emissions are a fraction of the global emissions. But we know that Connecticut can implement innovative, thoughtful, progressive mitigation and adaptation policies that will dramatically reduce our emissions, grow our economy, and make our communities more resilient. In doing so, we continue to light a path for others to follow. This is our mission, leaving our planet in better shape than we found it for the sake of our children, our grandchildren, and future generations. Working together, I think we can do this and achieve real change this legislative session, and I'm asking your support in this endeavor. Thank you.
Want to stretch. Okay, thank you.
That was great, Commissioner. Thank you. Thank you for lifting us up. We need that. Good morning. Thank you, Lee, Claire, Lori, Melissa, the CFE team, the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters, for pulling together this pre-session environmental forum today and inviting the Connecticut Green Bank to be a part of it to say a few words. When you approached me about speaking at this forum, you asked that I provide an update on the recent sweeps of the Connecticut Green Bank and the impact those sweeps have had on us and our outlook on the future of clean energy in Connecticut. As hard as it is to discuss those sweeps, and given the challenges in front of our legislative leaders to fix a long-term structural budget deficit problem, I will attempt to communicate a message in a way that is hopeful. Hopeful because it would seem that every day, when we open up the paper or when we jump online to read the news, there's another article that puts us in a place of hopelessness. So I wanted to start off by telling you a story.
Could you be louder? The mic is up the mic. Oh, is the mic working? Try it like this.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I'll use my hands. Great. So I wanted to start off by telling you a story. That's much better. 2 weeks ago, I was at an event in New Britain, hosted by the Daughters of Mary of the Immaculate Conception, to witness the power of green energy. The Connecticut Green Bank, working with our partners at Eversource Energy and EcoSolar, invested $2.8 million in a 1.2 megawatt, 5-part solar array project on their campus. This project will save the Daughters of Mary $1.3 million over the next 20 years and reduce the emissions that cause global climate change. This is how we speak about green energy: investment, deployment, reducing energy costs, and confronting climate change. What I learned that day was more important about this project than the numbers is that we innovate to transform people's lives. Because of the energy savings that green energy provides to the Daughters of Mary, they are able to improve the services they offer to house the poor, help the battered, and provide daycare services for the young and old. As the state of Connecticut faces budget challenges and how it is going to maintain important services within our communities to help those in need, it is green energy that is providing a gateway to inclusive prosperity in our communities. We are not faced with two separate crises, one environmental and the other social, but rather one complex crisis which is both social and environmental. Strategies for a solution demand an integrated approach to combating poverty, restoring dignity to the excluded, and at the same time, protecting nature. Since the inception of the Connecticut Green Bank in July of 2011, we have delivered extraordinary results for Connecticut. We've mobilized over $1 billion of private investment in our green economy by leveraging ratepayer funds for the last couple of years by 8 to 1, meaning for every $1 million of ratepayer resources invested, we attract $8 million of private investment into our state. We have helped more than 25,000 families and businesses lower the burden of energy costs by deploying green energy. The savings that those families and businesses receive from green energy will improve their lives and their bottom line. In 2014, we took a hard look at the impact we were making with green energy in low to moderate income communities. The findings were striking. Even though we were successful mobilizing private investment into our state's economy, we were failing to ensure that green energy was available to everyone. For example, in 2012, we invested $2 million in 70 projects for low to moderate income households. Last year, we invested over $80 million in more than 3,500 projects in low to moderate income households. That is 40 times more investment and 50 times more projects. For the first time ever, in the 6 years of the Connecticut Green Bank, low to moderate income families were receiving more investment in green energy than non-low to moderate income families. There can be no renewal of our relationship with nature without a renewal of humanity itself. There can be no ecology without an adequate anthropology. In the process of bringing green energy to families and businesses, we have created more than 13,000 jobs in our communities through contractors who are at the front lines of the green economy. These are jobs that our state desperately needs. We have deployed more than 230 megawatts of green energy that will reduce 3.7 million metric tons of greenhouse gases that will help us confront global climate change. The model of the Connecticut Green Bank is now being replicated across this country and around the world. In New York, New Jersey, Nevada, Montgomery County, Maryland, and Washington, D.C., to South Africa, India, and Latin America. Because of the audacity of our political leaders to work in a bipartisan way to create the Connecticut Green Bank in July of 2011, the state of Connecticut and the Connecticut Green Bank last year won the coveted Innovations in American Government Awards from the Kennedy School at Harvard University. This is the Oscars of public service recognition. Then on October 31st last year, a bipartisan budget was passed that swept $175 million of ratepayer and RGGI funds to help reduce the budget deficit of the general fund of the state of Connecticut. $32.6 million was swept from the Connecticut Green Bank, more than 55% of our resources. Believe me, that hurts, the sweep hurt. Yes, we have taken significant steps to address the acute impacts of those sweeps on the organization by reducing operating expenses, displacing staff, canceling investments, and restructuring ourselves to pursue a strategy of sustainability while maintaining our mission and purpose and commitment to the underserved. Thanks in large part to the leadership of Commissioner Klee and Dept. However, it is the chronic impacts that we now need to address. As a result of the sweeps, we lost a deal that was the foundation to our future, a future without the need for ratepayer or public funds to advance our green economy. The deal was with one of the largest commercial banks in the country. Because of the strength of our balance sheet and because of our track record of delivering measurable results, They wanted to provide us a $10 million loan at a 1% interest rate for a 10-year term. Let me tell you that it doesn't get any better than that. That $10 million deal, all private funds, would have attracted another $30 million of private investment on top of that for $40 million that was going towards green energy in underserved markets of low to moderate income families and small businesses. We lost the deal because of the sweeps and are now working hard to restore the confidence from private investors that the state of Connecticut and the Connecticut Green Bank are still places they should be investing in. And this leads me to my final point, bringing us back to innovation, leadership, and hope. I want to tell one last story about a conversation I had after the sweeps with a prominent economic development leader in our state. So I'm going to ask a question. Has anyone here heard of the Madden curse? All right. I know why. We can talk afterwards. As someone who grew up playing Madden football on PlayStation, and being that I've become a big fan of the New England Patriots, go Pats, we've got the Super Bowl coming up in a couple weeks, I'm quite familiar with the Madden curse. The Madden curse goes something like this. Since 1998, most NFL players who have selected to grace the cover of Madden football, and there have been 19 of them, have had troubling or abruptly shortened seasons following their cover debut. This year, who was on the cover? Tom Brady. All right, so we're going to defy all odds. He's the GOAT after all. At the end of the conversation I was in with this leader, he asked me, was it worth it to be on the cover of Madden? I knew immediately what he meant. What he meant was that because we won the most prestigious award in government, this put a target on our backs for the sweeps that would subsequently occur. The point he was trying to make was that because of the innovation and leadership we were being recognized for, this made us susceptible for the legislature to sweep us because of the positive press we were receiving. Our state has challenges ahead in dealing with the budget deficit. You can't read an article without feeling despair. In order for us to lift ourselves out of this problem, we need optimism. We need positive examples. We need to feel that there is a pathway forward. We need to believe that there is a gateway to inclusive prosperity. So let us sing as we go. May our struggles and our concern for this planet never take away the joy of our hope. Thank you.
Thank you both very much for the content and the standing up there with leadership and getting everybody, I think, really pretty pumped. So we've done good with timing, and I'm going to grab the basket of, okay, thank you. What are sweeps? They are the taking of money from one place by legislative decision from where it is supposed to go into the general budget. Good enough? Okay, I'm going to just grab the basket of questions, which I have left in the back. Okay, looking smooth. Is Connecticut falling behind neighboring states in residential solar, shared solar? Do we have catch up to do?
So let me tackle residential solar. And
I think maybe each of you could comment.
So I took a look at the, I think, Acadia Center story this morning that Jan Ellen Spiegel ran in the Connecticut Mirror. I took a quick look at it. There was one section that compared on a per capita basis the deployment of behind-the-meter renewable energy. That's all behind the meter, commercial, industrial, residential. I know that our residential program on a watts per capita basis is leading right alongside Massachusetts, New York, and New Jersey. So I feel really good about where Connecticut is on residential solar. But more importantly, when you look at the dollars we expend in public subsidies per watt deployed, we are dramatically less than those neighboring states, which means we are doing it in a smarter way, and we're doing it in a way that's attracting more private capital. I anticipate there's going to be questions on the Chinese tariff. I'll throw out a few data points in terms of Connecticut. So over the course of the last 5 years, we've had $725 million of investment going into the residential solar market. 100 million of that is going to Chinese panels. If you look at our projects, 60% of the projects come from China in terms of panels. In the conversations we've had with contractors and in terms of looking at the impacts of the tariff on residential solar, it's going to be something like 10 to 15 cents per watt, which is about 3%. So we feel good about where Connecticut is with regards to dealing with the tariff. Now, with regards to commercial and industrial and utility scale systems, those are going to be more impacted by those economics. But on the residential side, we feel like we can weather the tariffs.
And so I'll only add to that our goal with the final draft of the energy strategy, Mary Sotos is in the back, which will be coming out soon, is to make sure that there's a sustainable glide path to take what the Green Bank has done in terms of residential solar, their SHREC program, and make sure that glide path continues and maintains the robust clean energy industry that has been developed here. So we have taken your feedback to heart during the draft to final process. So I think you'll be pleasantly, you'll be, I think, appreciative of the moves that we're making in that direction to ensure that there's a sustainable long-term funding, as that is a key for us. And a key to keep building on the fact that Connecticut is a leader in making sure that we're being the most frugal that we can in the deployment of our limited, very limited state resources, and really finding ways to deploy at scale, leveraging private capital wherever we can. On shared solar as well, so we've also heard you there. That is a place where we're in the revised CES, that will be a pathway to a statewide program. I will caution, though, that I don't know if you want to cheer for me yet, because you didn't hear my caution, that one of the places that we're most interested in shared solar is to the extent that it can help reduce energy burden on low and moderate income folks and small businesses. Because we think that's the true benefit of those savings are to those segments of our economy that need them most. But that will be part, again, of the reform of the behind the meter programs to ensure that there's a robust place for that, and for our municipal folks, for our municipal and ag and state sort of behind the meter programs as well. So those are all elements of how to find that sustainable path to ensure we're supporting our in-state and behind the meter solar programs.
Okay, so I have a cluster of questions about energy policy and kind of different focal points. Seeing how methane emissions have up to 100 times the greenhouse effect of carbon emissions, should we be implementing similar measures to a carbon tax, such as a methane tax or something? What can we do about methane?
So on methane in general, Connecticut is one of the leading states in trying to address leaky, we are states with old infrastructure, leaky pipes, those sorts of things. On the subject of a methane tax or carbon tax in general, obviously I'm a former academic, and the taxation system is one of the more efficient ways to get at this sort of problem, but I'm also a realist, and I live in the real world, and with this General Assembly, I don't see that happening by any stretch of the imagination. And my data points there also come from the fact that in the energy strategy, we proposed a modest fee on oil customers, propane customers, to have them contribute to our efficiency programs. That was resoundingly, it got a whole lot of folks upset at us, and no one really supporting us on that front either. So, taxation systems also will run into the problem of one state acting alone or out in front. And I know Representative Albus, I'm sure, he brought a bill in last year. I'm sure he'll bring another one back. These are issues on the taxation front, particularly when you're talking about fuels, delivered fuels, that need coordination across multiple states. And that's why we're participating with the Georgetown Climate Center and the Transportation Climate Initiative to bring together those states to find a market-based mechanism that actually works. But taxation systems, in the face of this, where we are with the General Assembly and the fact that you might, taxation systems that create other pots of money that will go to places that aren't investments in clean energy, I'm not sure that's a place we want to even go.
I guess what I would add is on the project side, working with Deep in the market, we have our first food waste to energy project in Southington, Connecticut, the Quantum Biopower project that's taken food waste, producing methane, turning it into usable electricity and waste heat. Deep currently has an open RFP out looking for more anaerobic digestion projects. We recently supported, literally going directly to the methane, the support of a loan guarantee on the farmer's cow facility to create anaerobic digestion from cow manure. So literally we are trying to find ways of reducing the global warming impact of methane from cows by supporting local farmers in farmer's cow.
Great, thank you. And so the next question is methane from natural gas infrastructure and expansion of natural gas infrastructure and why we are where we are. How can we manage, reduce, deal with that impact?
The impacts in terms of leaks from pipelines or leaks at
The cumulative power plants, cumulative impacts of natural gas and especially the expansion of natural gas infrastructure, I think is the question.
So the expansions of natural gas infrastructure have basically, on the expansion of pipelines into the region have basically been stopped by the fact that there isn't a multi-state consensus and or movement to get them built. Without Massachusetts, and it was 50% of our load, they don't get built. Our limited increase in our natural gas capacity here in Connecticut were for fuel conversions, which have helped our manufacturing sector in particular, sort of large loads shift off of oil and propane into natural gas. Those limited sort of increases in natural gas infrastructure have also helped to the extent, to a small extent, in reducing the overall constraints we feel during the winter when all of our natural gas goes to home heating and there isn't enough for power plants and we run coal and oil. So if you've seen the last cold snap around New Year's, if you looked at the ISO New England's fun little app, download it, it's fun, a little scary. The power prices were in the $300+ range and we were providing power 33% oil, 7% coal. So 40% from fossil because of the fact we don't have enough gas infrastructure. We are moving past that because we know that's not going to happen, and that's why we're doing things like our investments in clean energy, our grid scale renewables, our best-in-class procurement, which is attracting non-gas, non-fossil resources like offshore wind. We're in there with Massachusetts in their offshore wind procurement, and we're anticipating some pretty impressive bids there that we're excited about. We have our additional procurement authorities that bring, grid scale renewables, and they keep going down in price. So that's where we're going to keep investing in our energy and time and resources, is ensuring that we're deploying renewables at scale and seeing the growth of battery technology and grid scale batteries that can then deal with the fact that many renewables are intermittent. So that's where our focus and attention is going forward.
Great, okay. Millstone is a major component of Connecticut's supply of non-carbon electricity. Wouldn't it make sense to treat it separately by negotiating a reasonable price for long-term supply, considering that it's difficult for the nuclear plant to respond to fluctuations in the marketplace?
So we're in the middle of a process where I think we issued a draft report about just that question. So for those who I guess didn't see our draft, and comments are still open until Mary today. Yeah, so today.
Yes, Mary.
Sorry, Claire, they're today.
Nobody jump all over Mary who's standing in the back.
So it is an open process, but we did issue a draft report that basically said our analysis of Millstone based on the information that we have at the time. They are profitable, but there are sensitivities that were run based on the limited information that they gave us, that they are at risk due to these market forces. And so we provide a pathway through what the legislature has given us, a procurement pathway. And it's a procurement pathway that allows existing resources to demonstrate that they're at risk through the full opening of their books with audited financials. And if that happens, they can then compete with the full price criteria in the evaluation of what they're delivering, and that they are actually at risk of going away by a date certain, which makes you think about that base case, how the market looks in a different way than what we're currently assuming, that they're profitable and are staying into the future. All of that said, we tend to agree with others in the General Assembly who've been talking about the nuclear as a bridge as we are growing the renewable fleet. And that's how we're approaching our continued investment and focus on Class 1 carbon-free renewables and the importance of those in meeting that ambitious 45% by 2030 target. You need to have the most efficient, effective, and largest amount of baseload clean power that you can find that is zero carbon.
Great, thank you. Now this was for Brian. Given the skill and innovativeness of what you guys do, what ideas are kind of bubbling along for leveraging more private capital to keep you strong that you can disclose?
So we're in a bit of a state of transition. You know, I think coming from the culture of innovation and designing new products and developing new markets, right now we're just getting used to our new reality, right? So you all who have been in restructured environments, so we're getting settled in there. But one of the things that we're taking a look at is the legislature has also given us the ability to issue bonds and to take a look at private activity bonds. So I think one of the things you'll see from us in the future is the utilization of tax-exempt bond financing to support clean energy. So you could think about bonds as a low-cost access to capital. How can we move more private investment to purchasing those bonds and then using the proceeds to support more underserved markets that need clean energy? So stay tuned. I think you'll see us look at bonding more.
Wonderful. Okay. Next to last question. What is it really going to take to protect the clean energy funds from further rating? Like hard realism question there.
So that is a hard question, particularly because the General Assembly has that power to say, notwithstanding all the things in statute, we're going to do this or that or the other. Part of our goal in this upcoming legislative session, particularly on the efficiency fund side, is to propose new models that are less subject to raid. I will highlight one that we've already used to good effect, our ability to procure efficiency as a resource. It competed in our small-scale RFP, I guess a year or two ago, 34 megawatts of additional efficiency, bid in by one of the utility companies. The bid process creates a world where you do the measures and you kind of get reconciled and paid back later. There is no pot of money. And pots of money are the things that apologies to all you legislators here in the office, you can't help yourselves from taking them. That's our unfortunate financial reality here. So those are the types of things we're going to strive to transform. That transformation is new, uncharted territory, and will require a lot of folks, smarter than me, to come together and figure out the right way to do that in a sensible way. Because the last thing that we would want to do is take a reaction to a negative stimulus, the sweeps, and pivot to something that doesn't work. That would be another unintended consequence that we want to avoid. So we're working hard to try to figure that out.
Okay, thank you all. Any one-liner?
It wouldn't be a one-liner, so.
Okay, great. Thanks to both of you, gentlemen, for a very informative and balanced and useful presentation. And while you're making your way off stage, we're going to have the energy panel come on stage. And yay.